This is our spinal cord presentation. Here's an outline.
A brief introduction to our volunteer is Drew. He works from home in marketing, and he enjoys traveling to new cities and doing photography for work. He had a complete C6 spinal cord in 1995, where he slipped and fell backwards on a waterfall in Jamaica. And then a little bit about his home. I will expand upon this down later in the presentation. It's a ranch-style home. Some interesting features. He had zip ties around handles to make it easier to open with his tenodesis. He had a Hoyer lift track system to get him from his bed into the bathroom, custom toilet seats and grab bars in the bathroom. And then we'll expand upon his garage with his customized van, and also his office workstation that includes a couple specific things to spinal cord injury.
One of the big aha moments that our group had was just how normal Drew's life was, despite his spinal cord injury, and his ability to travel for work. With some modifications, he needed to travel with a nurse, and his bedroom needed to have capabilities when he stayed in hotels. But it was still really interesting to hear him talk about how he was able to, adapt his life around his job and still be able to fulfill his role within his company. Being able to enter his car and see the modifications to that, and how he was able to anchor himself into the driver's seat and drive his car with his injury was really interesting as well. He made a lot of really smart use of his tenodesis grip to be able to use certain items in his home, such as he uses a lot of zip ties on the back of his phone and on the door to his refrigerator, so he could just use them and open them using his tenodesis grip. And something that I was really interested in was how important mentorship seemed to be for him. So he was part of a support group after his spinal cord injury that pairs people with other people who have had similar spinal cord injuries and helps them kind of adapt to their new lifestyle. So it was interesting to hear him talk about how important that support role was, and now he's able to pay that back and mentor others.
Drew shared many interesting stories, such as about a mentorship program he's involved with and traveling all over the country for work. One story that stuck out was his experience traveling home immediately after his injury. Drew slipped on a waterfall while traveling in Central America. After Drew was taken to the local hospital, they realized they would not be able to provide the level of care that Drew needed. Drew's family was lucky enough to have family friends in Miami that owned a med-flight helicopter business. This family flew their helicopter over and brought Drew back to Miami and then up to Columbus for his stay at Dodd. Drew credits part of his recovery to this and considers himself very lucky because without this family, he would not have received the care he needed as quickly as he did.
Drew underwent extensive months-long inpatient rehab at Dodd Hall, and he credits his lengthy stay at Dodd Hall to much of his functional independence today, and acknowledges the downfalls that current spinal cord patients have, as they no longer have as much time at Dodd Hall than he did. Drew also currently utilizes an arm bike as his mode of exercise. He places his forehead on the machine to limit the need for trunk support, and Drew also says it's our job as PTs to encourage patients to stay active outside of therapy sessions by encouraging them to keep pursuing their occupation, hobbies, and social events as well.
Visiting Drew was an excellent experience that provided many learning opportunities. Firstly, for many of us, this was the first time we interacted with someone with a spinal cord injury. This visit allowed us to see how he moves and manages his day-to-day life. We got to see classroom principles such as architectural barriers in action as Drew walked us through his home modifications. Additionally, we got to hear Drew's perspective on therapy and life following his injury. Drew spoke on the importance of accepting the reality of his injury. There's nothing we can do to change the injury. However, we can help people learn to live a meaningful life with it. Drew mentioned having a focus on thriving rather than just surviving. In our visit, we also got to witness the creativity of Drew and the therapy team. Drew was once suffering from shoulder pain due to his skin rubbing on his wheelchair. Drew purchased a youth shin guard to place over his shoulder and noticed a decrease in pain. This is just one example of the team's problem-solving ability. This is a skill we can integrate as PTs to better support our patients.
Our perspective was significantly changed during our visit. We were visually able to understand the depth to which life is changed after someone experiences a spinal cord injury, and that there are many aspects of life that are affected beyond what the average person considers. We wanted to tie this into the psychosocial aspects of disability and recovery lecture, in that we need to work to understand the context of their personal lives. For example, sticky keys on a computer, while that might not be useful for us, is useful for Drew, and we need to consider that as well. Another aspect of lecture we wanted to tie into our project was being supportive, empathetic, and that language can set the tone on the disability rather than the person. So saying, "I'm sorry this happened," nearly does not cut it. It does not capture the depth to which a person needs to recover. So we need to focus on supportive language rather than pitying language.
A few things we learned from our spinal cord injury home visit with Drew is the importance of support systems and having a positive attitude when recovering from a spinal cord injury. Mentorship was one thing Drew mentioned when talking about things that have helped him make it through his recovery. Employment can be a barrier to patients when they are thinking about getting back to a typical lifestyle, so there are 2 listed resources below on those. There are some solutions that are not what we normally have in mind but work just as good. Drew gave us an example of that, and his story and home are prime examples to use in the future of what it looks like to still have a fulfilling and independent life after a spinal cord injury for future patients.